Hello, everyone. How are you today? I hope you are doing well. Today, we are going to talk about the history of the Philippine educational system. Let us also see how the nature and character of the Philippine society are reflected in the education process in different periods of Philippine history. After watching this video discussion, you will be able to trace the history of Philippine educational system. Class, as we talked about the Philippine educational system, just remember this sociological concept which is the focus of this lesson, that education is a function of a society and as such what are taught in schools arise from the nature and character of society itself. What society considers important is what schools teach. Let's start with education during the pre-colonial period. Education was informal and unstructured back then. It is also decentralized. Fathers taught their sons how to look for food and other means livelihood. Mothers taught their daughters to do the household chores. This education basically prepared their children to become good husbands and wives. Children are provided more vocational training and lesser academics. Teachers are tribal tutors. We call them babaylan or katalunan. Next is education during the Spanish era. Education was formal and organized this time. It was authoritarian in nature. Tribal tutors of the pre-Spanish period were replaced by Spanish missionaries. Pupils attended formal schooling in the parochial school. Instructions was religion related. Christian doctrines, sacred songs, and music and prayers were taught because they were required for confession and communion. There was a separate school for boys and girls. Wealthy Filipinos class, or also called the ilustrados, were accommodated in schools. Next, we have the Educational Decree of 1863. This law gave Filipinos a complete system of education from elementary to the collegiate level. The law provided for the establishment of the elementary schools in all municipalities in the country. Although religion was the core of the curriculum included subjects like reading, writing, arithmetic, history, Christian doctrine, Spanish language, vocal music, agriculture for the boys, and needlework for the girls. Attendance in school was compulsory between the ages 7 and 12. Now let's move on to education during the American regime in 1898 to 1946. The Americans promoted democratic ideals and the democratic way of life. The schools maintained by the Spaniards class for more than 3 centuries were closed but were reopened on August 29, 1898 by the Secretary of the Interior. A system of free and compulsory elementary education was established by the Malolos Constitution. In May 1898, the first American school was established in Corregidor, and shortly after the capture of Manila in 1899, 7 schools were opened in the city. Training class was done through the schools, both public and secular, named by chaplains and military officers of the U.S. Army. Homicides arrived in the Philippines on August 23, 1901. The University of the Philippines was founded in 1908. University of the Philippines class was the first state school of university status. The Department of Public Instruction set a 3-level school system. The first level considered a 4-year primary and 3-year intermediate or 7-year elementary curriculum. The second level was 4-year junior college and later a 4-year program. Let's go to the Commonwealth period, that is 1935 until 1942. Free education in public schools was provided all over the country in accordance with the 1935 Constitution. Vocational education and some household activities like sewing, cooking, and farming were also given importance. Education also emphasized nationalism so that students were taught about the life of the Filipino heroes. vocational education, and some household activities were also given importance. Good manners and discipline were also taught to the students. The Institute of Private Education was established in order to observe private schools. Formal adult education was also given. Executive Order No. 134 of 1936 was signed by President Manuel L. Quezon designating ibabatay sa Tagalog ang ating pambansang wika. Executive Order No. 217, otherwise known as the Quezon Code of Ethics, was taught in schools. Executive Order No. 263 in 1940 required the teaching of the Filipino national language in the senior year of all high schools and in all years in the normal schools. The Education Act of 1940 was approved by the Philippine Embassy on August 7, 1940, which provided for the following. First, reduction of the 7-year elementary course to 6 years. Second, fixing the school entrance age at 7. Third, national support for elementary education. Fourth, compulsory attendance for primary children enrolled in grade 1. And lastly, adoption of double single sessions in the primary grade with 1 teacher, 1 class assignment of intermediate teachers. Moving on to the Japanese occupation. The aims of education during Japanese education are the following. First, make the people understand the position of the Philippines as a member of the East Asia co-prosperity sphere. Second, eradication of the idea of reliance upon Western states, particularly the US and Great Britain. Third, fostering a new Filipino culture based on the consciousness of people as Orientals. Fourth, elevating the moral of the people, giving up overemphasis to materialism. Fifth, diffusion of elementary education and promotion of vocation education. Sixth, striving for the diffusion of Japanese language in the Philippines and determination of the use of English in schools. Seventh, developing in people the love of labor. Plus, during the post-colonial Philippines, education aimed at the full realization of the democratic ideals and way of life. The civil service eligibility of teachers was made permanent pursuant to Republic Act 1079 in June 15, 1954. A daily flag ceremony was made compulsory in all schools, including the singing of the national anthem pursuant to Republic Act 1265, approved on June 11, 1955. Curricular offerings in all schools, the life, the works, and writings of Dr. Jose Rizal, especially the Noli Me Tangere and the El Filibusterismo, shall be included in all levels. Elementary education was nationalized and matriculation fees were abolished. Magna Carta for teachers was passed into law by virtue of Republic Act 4670. Class, the fundamental aims of education in the 1973 Constitution are the following. Foster love of country, teach the duties of citizenship, develop moral, self-discipline, and scientific, technological, and vocational efficiency. As the time passed, there are other developments happened in the educational system of the Philippines. We have integration of values in all learning areas, emphasis on mastery learning, YDT and CAT introduced as new courses, media of instruction, bilingual education policy, which mandates the use of English and Filipino separately as media of instruction in schools. We have Education Act of 1982, which created the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports. We also have the NCEE, or the National College Entrance Examination. Another, Executive Order No. 117, signed by President Corazon C. Aquino, renamed Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports into DECS in 1987, or Department of Education, Culture, and Sports. Another development is the creation of the Board of Professional Teachers, composed of 5 under PRC, or the Professional Regulation Commission. The replacement of PBET or the Professional Board Examination for Teachers by LET or the Licensure Examination for Teachers. Another development is the transfer of authority of administering the licensure examination for teachers from Civil Service Commission and Department of Education, Culture and Sports to the Board of Professional Teachers under PRC. Trifocalization of education system was also introduced as another development of our educational system. The trifocal education system refocused DECS mandate to basic education, which covers elementary, secondary, and non-formal education, including culture and sports. TESDA now administers the post-secondary, middle-level manpower training and development by virtue of Republic Act 7796. TESDA means Technical Education and Skills Development Act of 1994. CHED, or the Commission on Higher Education, is responsible for higher education by virtue of Republic Act 7722 or the Higher Education Act of 1994. In August 2001 class, Republic Act 9155, otherwise called the Governance of Basic Education Act, was passed, transforming the name Department of Education, Culture and Sports or DECS to the Department of Education or DepED, and refining the role of field offices like regional offices, division offices, district offices, and schools. Republic Act 9155 provide the overall framework, for example, in school head empowerment by strengthening their leadership roles, and second, school-based management within the context of transparency and local accountability. The goal of basic education is to provide the school-age population and young adults with skills, knowledge, and values to become caring, self-reliant, productive, and patriotic citizens. Values education is offered as a separate subject in the new secondary education curriculum and integrated in all subject areas in both curricula. Again, NSEC means the new secondary education curriculum. In January 2012, Republic Act 10157 was approved. It is also known as the Kindergarten Act. It is an act institutionalizing the kindergarten education into the basic education system. And of course, on May 15, 2013, Republic Act 10533, also known as the K-12 program, was passed. The K-12 program covers kindergarten and 12 years of basic education. That is 6 years of primary education, 4 years of junior high school, and 2 years of senior high school to provide sufficient time for mastery of concepts and skills, develop lifelong learners, and prepare graduates for tertiary education, middle-level skills development, employment, and entrepreneurship. Now, the question, class, is why do we need to study all of this? Why do we have to bother with the educational goals of the past, which is past, and so we can no longer undo it? Class, Dewey explains why a study of history of education is very important and valuable. He gave 3 reasons. Number 1, educational issues and problems are often rooted to the past. The study of educational history can help us understand and solve today's problems. Second, realistic effort to reform education begin with present conditions which are a product of our past. By using our past, we can shape the future. And lastly, the study of education's past provides a perspective that explains and illuminates our present activities as teachers. Are you learning? I hope you are. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Have a great day. Bye!